Good morning, everyone. Be calling a regular meeting for November 19, 2020 to order. If we could please stand for Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the state flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Thank you, everyone. So moving right along with this meeting's agenda, it's approval of regular meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Edwards, second by Commissioner Salas. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Gila Regional Medical Center report. Mr. Scott Landrum.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and others. Today, we will be having also a board meeting. I think many of us are on holiday schedules. Our board meeting today will be at 1. It is a normal agenda. We will be having public input, of course, executive session. We will talk about our quality, do our consent agenda. Then I will be giving a verbal report, as I usually do. CNO report, CFO report, and of course, Chief of Staff. The Health Tech Management report will be last. The official business that will be done today is we have 2 resolutions on the action item, and these have to do with monies that we have secured via the cigarette tax. As I believe we have reported before, we're getting $1.1 million from the cigarette tax, and $835,000 of that is for the electronic health record, particularly as it pertains to our cancer treatment center. Initially we'll be doing a resolution where they will refinance the bonds. This is just a standard operating procedure. We've had a hearing. We have a virtual hearing with regard to this, and then we will, the second resolution will be for approval to execute the closing package of documents for issuance of the bonds, and then they will be repaid with the cigarette tax. This comes at a time when the hospital is on its way to recovery and improvement, and we very much appreciate this. We're working with some other grant funds as they will pertain to roof, HVAC, things like that, and we're very, very happy to be able to access some of these things. I can report to the commissioners this morning that we continue to show an improvement in our finances. That will be, we're not at break even yet, but we're approaching it. And as soon, one of the things that we are doing, and we believe that a lot of the issues that pertain to the hospital are the revenue cycle. And I know I've talked with this group before about revenue cycle. That starts at the point that you meet the patient, the first time that you see them, talk to them, treat them, et cetera, and then revenue cycle goes through the time that the patient has finished their treatment, gone home. And so we have to code what we bill for, we have to bill it, we have to go through, and as many of you know, all of you who deal with your own insurance, it's a very difficult process. And so we had a good kickoff with our initial revenue cycle person, and we have our second one in. Her name is Brenda Perry. She arrived this week, and both of these are interim. One replaced the other. And she will be reporting to the board not at November session, but at December, because she's just gotten here. And it's important that she gets her feet on the ground. Today, at the board meeting, we will also have Rob Hoguin there. to talk about what we're doing with regard to our radiologist. Our radiologist group has been a very fine group and done a great job in the past, but many of them are retiring. We talked to them about bringing in some new people, and they are a small group, and we have sort of test-driven some of the people that they've been able to get, but they've had difficulty recruiting some doctors. So for the past several months, we've been going through a process of reviewing at least 3 providers for that, and I know they met with the Rob Hogeen, who is our director of radiology, met with the medical exec committee this last week to brief them with regard to what we were doing and what our plans were. And they're very happy with the plans we have with the hospital. And so we'll be talking about it today. And then at the December meeting, there will be an official approval of the contract. We try to spread it out because we don't expect our board members to see it one minute and expect to approve it on the next. We have been working, as many of you know, with Priscilla Lucero. We've got the prospector's date coming up. We are making not changes, but we are being very careful in what we ask for at prospectors. You know, there's a limited amount of money this year. We want to be appropriate with our asking for things that we definitely need. And she is helping us to decide the priority and the numbers to go forward with. So we're in the process of doing that. Finally, during COVID, it is difficult to communicate. You know, I'm standing here speaking through a mask, which is tough for me, but you know, we just have to get through it. And one of the things that we do at the hospital, we essentially have a department managers meeting 5 days a week. Nursing has a clinical huddle 7 days a week. And in that clinical huddle, the nurses meet to hand off from one group of nurses to another patients. And we want to have a continuum of care with that, and that goes on in pretty much every hospital. Also goes on in pretty much every hospital, including Gila, is we do a safety huddle every morning. It is actually a safety and operational huddle. It is a lot more fun and I think advantageous if we are able to meet as a group in a large room. But as you know, with COVID, we can't do that. So we're doing ours virtually. We have a group that meets in our conference room. It's typically be running about 4, everyone with masks. Then we go to our boardroom, and everybody's hooked in, and we've got them on speakerphone. And we go to the boardroom. Then we go from the boardroom to nursing. There's typically 4 to 5 within nursing. Then we go to our medical staff services, and there's generally 2 or 3 there. And then we go to the Hill to the compliance folks, the contract folks, and then finally we have everybody else calling in. One of the examples would be Frank that runs our rehab, and he's down at our rehab center, and he generally calls in. What we do every morning is we share what is going on in the hospital. Sometimes, and it's always a looking back, looking forward format. Looking back, what happened since the last report. Looking forward, what you expect today. And it is a phenomenal resource with regard to sharing and all of our directors knowing what's going on. One of the examples that I've used would be, let's just say Bob, our person in housekeeping, is there every morning. He participates in the huddle, he knows, but then when he gets back to his office or the area that he goes to, all of his folks are spread out over the house, and although he makes every effort to let them know, keep them up on what is going on, sometimes that is difficult. So we've been asked, our board chair, Miss Alicia, has asked us to try to improve our communication. And so what we have done, and we kicked it off yesterday, is from these notes that are taken during the huddle, we're putting together a weekly newsletter. A weekly newsletter. Several of you already gotten it electronically. It is colorful. It is interesting. It went out to all employees, all doctors yesterday, board members, et cetera, et cetera. And we have structured it in such a way that we can add to it. Take off the picture at the bottom. And I think next week's, which we're probably going to be putting together tomorrow, because obviously next week is a holiday week, is going to talk about several of the things that we've been able to accomplish since our management contract was let and what we have been able to do. We'll talk about finances. It will talk about changes in structure and things like that. So all in all, I think we are doing a good job at the hospital. Of course, I know you would expect me to say that, but I have to support that. And it is a team effort. It's not just me. It's the team of all the folks at the hospital that are coming together to make us better, to get us into a break-even and above mode, which is what we're shooting at, and to continue to provide a level of care which is appropriate for this community. And let me just reiterate one more time that you are now a critical access hospital, which just talks about it's really just a financial thing. That's all it is, meaning that you can't have on the average more than 25 patients in the hospital at a time, no more than a 4-day stay, not within 35 miles of another hospital, et cetera, et cetera. But Gila Regional is a small town hospital on steroids. You have an asset here that you should be very, very proud of. You are 80% outpatient and only 20% inpatient, and you provide a very valuable and sophisticated service to the community. One last thought, we've had a couple of patients this week, and I cannot talk about, generally can't give you their names and stuff, not COVID patients, but patients that have come in with extreme circumstances, which our people have been able to isolate and get them out to a place where they can get the best quality of care. You know, I can probably say this, we airlifted someone to a hospital in Las Vegas this week just so they could get the very specialized care they needed. And so I think you can feel comfortable that your local hometown hospital is doing a phenomenal job. We've got a phenomenal group of physicians, and they're all working together and communicating to make us better. And with that, I'll entertain questions.
Commissioners, questions, comments? Commissioner Edwards?
Would you just give us a little overview about what's happening with COVID? We recognize that you can't, give a lot of details, but would you just give us an overview, please?
I will be happy to. We had a special medical staff meeting yesterday where we reviewed our surge plan, and I know that surge plan has been talked about. I think it was actually Ms. Rodriguez discussed that at the last board meeting, and that would be what we would have to do if we were overwhelmed with COVID patients. Well, we're really lucky in this community. We're not overwhelmed. We're doing a really good job. The surge plan would include things like we would shut down elective surgery, we would stop rehab, we would do things that people decide to do. And our doctors, we have a group of doctors that we can call in, which includes in the surge plan HMS providers. And we reviewed that yesterday again, went back out to the medical staff again, just as a reminder, because that's surging everywhere, but it's not surging here. We're doing very well. We're far enough away. And are we confronting the pandemic? Well, yes, we are, but we are able to manage it with very low numbers, and we're continuing our business as usual. But everybody is being taken care of. Today, I think you will see a tent go up outside of the hospital. It's a big white tent. I was using the very same thing, as many of you know, I came here from a Montana hospital where I was doing a project. And in that white tent that's being set up, people coming into the emergency room, if they're coming in with any kind of respiratory issues, a cough, short of breath, et cetera, we are processing them through that tent in a separate path and rather bringing them directly into the emergency room. We're not having any problems. We have, in fact, we reopened our second entrance. We had, like so many hospitals, the front door of the hospital is only available for employees. And we also, the infusion area, which lots of times is for cancer treatment folks, is near the front entrance. And so what we do is we make arrangements for them. They have appointments. We go out and meet them and bring them in from their cars. And so we have that entrance open and for employees to come in. The second entrance is obviously through the emergency room, which is the one that most hospitals have decreased access to, because we have a lot of cancer treatment patients and a lot of surgery. I think we did 16, 17 surgeries yesterday. And we have reopened that area, but with a person there at a desk taking your temp, as we do everywhere when you come in. And the reason that we've done that is because Gila has such a high number of surgery patients. We thought it best to segregate the surgery patients from an emergency room patient, because if somebody is coming in for, say, endoscopy, you would not want them necessarily to have to come in the same door that an emergency room patient, which could be very sick, coming in. So we have reopened that. We weren't really having any problems before, but some of our physicians felt that as just a second precaution, we would reopen that entrance with somebody sitting there at a desk where they come in. And so we're managing very well. I will, as they say, knock on wood, but we're doing very well so far, but we are prepared if we have a lot more numbers.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. And you said we're not surging, but in fact our cases are, right?
Excuse me?
Our cases in Grant County, our positive test results have increased dramatically, right? It used to be, you could count on maybe 3 or 4. A day in the double digits was almost unheard of. Now we're very happy if it's, well below 20.
Yes.
We had 19 reported yesterday. We had a day with 24, 25, right? So the way I understand it, we can look forward in time and say, if the cases now are going up, our hospitalizations in a couple of weeks are going up. Is that correct?
I think that could be a very potential possibility, and that's what we're preparing for. Luckily, an awful lot of the COVID patients in the community are recovering at home. You literally have very few patients, and that's across the country. And we have some. Yes, we do. We're very careful in that, according to regulation, we report to the Department of Health every day, just like every hospital does, and they are pulling numbers that are regional numbers, and that is the best way for them to do it. I think they actually even go by zip code. But a lot of hospitals, and I was watching the morning news this morning, are just really overwhelmed. El Paso continues to come up as a problem. I think they just today reclosed the public schools in New York. And, while apparently they have not closed the restaurants and bars at the same time, but that gives everybody, and the pundits, certainly something to consider. I think our teachers in the country have done a phenomenal job because they're back and forth. Some of them are doing a hybrid where they're teaching in the classroom and at home. And this is hard on students. But yes, back to your question. It is going up, and that's the reason we had our called meeting of the medical staff, of members of the medical staff yesterday, to talk about our surge planning and what we would do. Obviously, the chief of staff was there. Chief medical officer, who is right now in Michigan, was online. We had our chief nursing officer there, and as a matter of fact, she did yet another briefing yesterday, and I heard from the chief of staff, one of our best, one of your hometown, Brian Robinson, and he commented afterward what a phenomenal job that Kelly was doing and how much he appreciated the organization that Gila is ready to accommodate should the time come.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get to. I think I understand the resistance to publishing numbers daily
Yes.
about what's going on, but I also understand the public has a clear interest in knowing that the hospital is doing what needs to be done
Yes.
to prepare, and that we're still in good shape. So when I heard your initial presentation, my concern was that you were underplaying the situation. I'm glad you've listed some of the things we're doing, because I think that there's no way we are avoiding, I think it's mathematically impossible to avoid
Right.
a big crunch. It's coming.
Right.
And I want to know that the hospital is doing everything it can. One thing that I've heard is we've actually begun, or maybe we're done, adding compartmentalized spaces for additional patients in the ICU.
Yes.
Is that not true? I don't
Yes.
think you mentioned that, but
It is. We talked about yesterday, I think we have 6 ventilators. We talked about yesterday that we could take our ICU from 6 to 8 to 10 if necessary. There is an area they call the zipper area, which you can actually go in and put up a barrier, and then the plan would be to move the acute care patients, and obviously the babies, on the other side of the hospital from this area. I will just say to you, yesterday we had only 1 COVID. You know, that's something everybody has been wanting to know for some time. They think we're overrun. We're not. You know,
So-
we've had more, we've had less. It changes all the time. But as of yesterday, we only had 1, and they were doing well.
from my perspective, I think it would be valuable to provide that information. And I would encourage you to do it if you don't feel like doing it daily, weekly. Give the community a sense of where we're at.
Sure.
And I think people will breathe more easily. When you
Right.
don't do that, people jump to conclusions that aren't necessarily accurate.
Well, I think they do, and everybody is scared to death of COVID, as they should be, because what I think the country is realizing is everybody is affected differently. You have older folks that, and yeah, I guess I would be in the risk category, and as of now, and not within the last 14 days, but I've been exposed 3 times, and I have yet to come down with it. And I think the issue is that it affects everybody differently. That doesn't mean, once again, knock on a little bit of wood here, that it wouldn't happen today, but we are very protective of our patients' rights. And you know, I just commented we had only 1 yesterday. That's true. That was according to our CNO. But we have yet to be overwhelmed, and I'm thinking that we will not be overwhelmed.
All right, well, you can keep knocking on wood, we can hope.
Yes, sir.
And I just want to conclude by thanking you for putting out the newsletter. Communication is crucial, and that's true
Yes.
internally as well as externally. So thanks for doing that, and thank you to the chairwoman for putting out your letter. Commissioner Edwards, I really appreciated that you did that. So thanks to both of you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I was hoping one of you would. Mr. Chair, commissioners, and others, thank you very much.
Hold on, Scott, we have Commissioner Salas.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I have a question related to testing. Do you have any of the quick tests now?
Yes, we do.
And how long have you had those?
We've had the quick test since week before last. We initially started with the Abbott ID, which is the one that everybody uses. That's the one that is not as trustworthy. It's the one all the hospitals had to begin with. And everybody was having trouble getting media for that, but it's one that you have to go to what they call a PCR test afterward. You know, you can test right now, you can do the one that goes to the state. There's a 3-day turnaround on it. We do have the quick test that we can do in the hospital, but let me stress, Commissioner Salas, that, and this is one of the things the medical staff talked about last week, people just don't go get a test because you decide, because the numbers are limited. You don't just go get a test because you decide you want to get a test. You're supposed to be symptomatic. Okay, and that's a big deal with the medical staff and across the country, that we do not have adequate numbers of the quick test to test everybody that would like to have one. We just can't do that. If you are symptomatic, cough, fever, et cetera, that's when you get tested, and that's what most of the medical staff in the country will tell you. I think it's probably not portrayed correctly when you see it on the news, that everybody thinks that they would like to have a quick test so we could get in our car and drive through and get swabbed. And I've been tested before, and yet it feels like they're tickling your brain, but nevertheless, that is something that patients need to be symptomatic. Asymptomatic patients are not normally tested.
Well, I was, thinking of the public, but also I was thinking about personnel, essential personnel in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had a doctor and nurse that had been exposed in such a manner where they thought they had it,
yes,
or could have had it, so I was thinking that would probably be an issue to get a quick test.
And we're testing them. We have, and most hospitals have that too. We have a internal health nurse. That's not the correct title, but he is the one working with the medical staff that is reviewing if we've had exposures. And for instance, have we had exposures with EMS? Yes, and we've tested them. Have we had exposures with other people? Yes, and we have tested them. So it's decided on a case-by-case basis. The thing that I want to be careful about is to not say, yes, we do have the quick test, because we do, but we don't want and don't have the numbers to do that, a line in the emergency room of people that would just like to get tested. It has to be, it's perused on a case-by-case basis. Some people are sent home, and I think one of the things now that we're dealing with, which makes it a little difficult to staff, is that if, say, a family member of an employee has tested positive, and yes, we do test them, there is generally a 5-day waiting period, but we are protecting not only our patients, but our employees and our physicians and everybody that works at the hospital. But yes, we do have the quick test. We are able to do and the other one that we're about to have is what's called the 4-part test, where you can be tested for COVID, flu, and 2 other abnormalities at the same time. And we're about to have that also because of the time of the year. But again, tests are ordered by physicians, and each patient is looked at, or employee is looked at on an individual basis. And have we had to test some physicians? Yes, we have. We've done that too. So we're just being very, very careful.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to tell you a little bit that I appreciate that newsletter. I did get some comments that it was a good morale booster, and also Madam Chair of the Governing Board of the hospital for her letter. Thank you. I think we're headed in the right direction, so hopefully we can continue that and do what needs to be done, but I appreciate that. Is there any other questions for Mr. Landrum? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Few hours. See you in a few hours.
Yeah. See you at 1.
Moving on to next item, which is public input. My understanding is there is no public input?
There's no.
Thank you. So going on to elected official reports, going to our treasurer, Mr. Armendariz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and first I'd like to congratulate the recently re-elected officials. I guess it's a testament to the job that they've been doing that the community appreciates, and you guys have a tough road to hoe, so congratulations. I would also like to thank the county employees within the building and outside of the building for their dedication and their cooperation, especially. All the offices have been working really good through the initial shutdown to the reopening to the re-shutdown. And I think we're really being successful in meeting the taxpayers' needs and their wants. Sometimes it gets a little difficult, but it's been a good experience, and you know, whether it's somebody looking for us or for the clerk's office or the assessor's office or the manager's office, we've all cooperated and, you know, get them moving to the right direction in a quick and safe manner. And so I thank them. I also want to thank my staff for doing a really, really outstanding job. You know, we have had recent changes. I'm kind of really happy, I guess, to say that we've had some of our employees that have moved on to other positions within the county, and I believe they're going to be excellent additions to those offices. And you know, I think we're headed in the right direction. I think things are going good. And of course, my remaining staff, I really have to congratulate. As you can see by the report, we're at 26.52% of collections at this point. This is only the second report for this year, tax year. So we've had almost $1.5 million collected for the general fund, and then the $221,000 for the debt service. And if you look at the bottom, there's about, compared to last month, almost about a $5 million, almost $6 million collections that we've done for everybody overall. And we just received the gross receipts distribution today. So while it is down a little bit compared to, it was like $415,000 overall, of which the county's share, without looking at the distribution, is between $85,000 and $90,000. It's been averaging about $99,000 over the last 6 months. So while it has come down a little bit, it's still holding pretty strong. And also want to thank the taxpayers for excellent jobs that they're doing as far as coming up and stepping up. We have, I would say, in the neighborhood of 90% of the payments that we have received have been payments for their taxes for the whole year. So that's really encouraging, and I think, and most of the people that did come in and pay when we were open would make the comment. I said, well, we guess that the county needs the money, so we're going to go ahead and pay our taxes in full. And of course, we appreciate that, and they're looking for the health of the county. So I thank them for that too. And this isn't probably, I hope, not the last time that you see me here, because we have one more to go. But I also included in your packet a little proposed changes to the investment policy. I know this isn't, if you want to say the process or what have you, but we have been trying for probably over a year to get something done, and so these are just my recommendations. I don't know, for whatever, that's worth, and I don't believe there's time between now and the end of December to have that actually go through the whole resolution process and what have you to amend the policy at this time. But, I've made the effort. It's been there for a long time, the recommendations, and it's, that's basically out of my hands now. And, unless you guys can enlighten me on some other situation or whatever that this can still go through, I'm willing to work with it for whatever can be done. And I have been working with the incoming treasurer. He's been in the office a couple of days, and we've been going over things. And we actually have another meeting next Wednesday. So, I stand for any questions, comments, or...
Do we have any questions? Commissioner Brown?
On the proposed resolution, it doesn't look like there's anything even remotely controversial. These are technical, grammatical, and statute reference changes, it looks like.
Yeah, well, it's pretty straightforward, and the reason, and I've got the reasoning behind that at the end of it, of why the changes, and it's just to clean up trying to take, by moving a little paragraph or a part of a paragraph, it eliminates several paragraphs, and it's just housekeeping, so to speak, and then an explanation of why I'm wanting to change the wording for the reports being done annually, as the report is provided to the auditors on an annual basis, which is basically we go through that as part of the audit, and then the monthly treasurer's financial statements. Well, as I explained there is no such thing anymore, because as we have gone to the manager's type of management under that form of county government, the treasurer doesn't give a financial statement like they used to. And the quarterly statements as well, those are done by Linda, that goes to the state. I provide her the investment portion of it, and then she puts it together with her report and sends it on to the state. And again, the monthly reports from our safety-keeping institution, it says daily, and we have access to it daily if we wanted to, just going online and going and finding that information. But to have it as a requirement on the policy, I think is kind of redundant, not redundant, but overkill. We get a monthly report on our capitalization, on what we have covered and everything by our third-party, reporting company, and so we have the information, and we have it available anytime we want it and need it. I just thought it would clean up the language in the.
And have you discussed these with the incoming treasurer?
I'm sorry?
Have you discussed these changes with Mr. Cohen?
Yes. He says, well, yeah, I've never done this, so I don't know what whatever you're...
Shirley, is there any reason we can't put this on December's agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I thought it might be appropriate to have, because of the timing of this, that it might be appropriate for the incoming treasurer to have some input rather than passing a policy that he will have to inherit a month prior to him coming into office. It just didn't seem like... I
don't have any objection to his input, but if he could provide his input even before he's sworn in, couldn't he?
And in my opinion, this needs some more work.
Okay, that's more like what I was getting at. Okay, I don't think it's urgent. I don't feel like we have to rush it, but I would like us to move forward. So if it needs more work, perhaps we can schedule a working session to discuss the more work it might need. And invite Mr. Cohn's input by all means. I just don't think it has to wait for him to be a sworn officer necessarily.
Well, my intention is just to get it cleaned up before I,
Sure, and it's been sitting for a long time, and that's why I want to make sure we don't just let it keep sitting.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? You know, Mr. Armendariz said just nowadays, we don't know, but we're not gonna let you off the hook so easy. You still have another meeting in December, but, you know, just want to thank you for your service to Grant County, being an elected official. Really appreciate that. I really thank you.
Yeah.
And I hope you enjoy whatever you do after January 1st.
Cleaning the garage, yeah, I'm gonna enjoy it.
Well, if you get bored, let me know. I have some stuff that needs to get done, so.
Okay.
But no, but really, thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you. I just want to say one other thing, and I haven't really, I've spoken to some of the members of the board, of the school board at Coburg, and one of the things that remains an issue, and I'm not, you know, since I'm not going to be here, I tried to give them some insight, and I guess they've announced that they are going to have a special election in February, and I think possibly I may have encouraged that because, as I told them, it's difficult, yes, but the effect of waiting till the November is actually going to hurt the district because, first of all, if you wait till the November election, the tax rates should have already been approved, should have already been done. The tax bills would already be gone. And the estimation is that would put them a whole year behind if it was approved in November to get the tax, start collecting the taxes. So that was my input to them, saying if you go ahead and do it in February and it's done, we can include it in the tax levy that goes in for the tax rates that are fixed in September, instead of having to have a delay and then, you know, this shouldn't be. And that way they'll get the money sooner, almost a whole year sooner, start getting that debt service in. And I've encouraged the Silver schools as well, but I don't know if they're going to be receptive, and I don't know what the cost would be to them and so on. But it would really simplify the matters for getting the tax bills out on a timely basis in November. So, or actually October, we get them out the end of October. So that would be before the election. So anyway, like I say, I still hope to be here again next month and add a little more, whatever. See, hopefully we'll get a lot more in by the time we get there, get closer to 50%, but only time will tell, I guess.
Commissioner Edwards?
A follow-up question to your comments about the special election. Does the district pay the cost of that special election?
Yes. Yeah, that was their kind of stumbling block. They were saying, well, if we have to put aside they're estimating $25,000, and it's all mail-in. It's a totally mail-in process. That, you know, and I told them, well, but weigh the difference. If you spend $25,000 now, and starting
collect a whole year's worth.
In November, you start collecting the money instead of not pay anything and then wait a year to start collecting. That's
sure.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
One more comment.
Yes, sir.
I really want to thank you, Steve, for all that you've done. I want to thank you for the help that you've given me in understanding some stuff that is pretty much Greek. You've been a valuable member, for a long time here, but also you've been a really good community member. You followed the footsteps of your dad, that helped people through some really hard times. The mining area and all the county knows that, when strikes, layoffs, and things like that. The to-do list is in your inbox. But, I want to thank you for all that, and I want to let you know that a lot of people recognize that. So, muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheriff Gomez?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Just wanted to start with a summary first for the month of October. In our training, the Sheriff's Office recently completed in-house state-mandated biannual training. With our instructional staff, the training was both effective and efficient. Once again, I'd like to recognize Manager Webb and the Commissioners for their assistance in making possible the training and development of the Sheriff's Office instructors. Sergeant Maldonado and Detective Jordan attended the Advanced Crisis Intervention Training Program course in peer counseling. I am currently working with them and the command staff in developing the framework of a full policy-based crisis intervention program for the Sheriff's Office. I hope to share this information with other departments as CIT programming may be adapted for the entire county. Deputy Palacios and Deputy Reese are currently attending a Tracer Instructor Update course so they may bring the latest curriculum and practical training to our staff. In regards to community participation, the National Drug Take Back Day was conducted by the Sheriff's Office in Cliff and Mimbrus for the first time. Public response was positive and many people stopped by to express their approval. Especially in these rural areas of Grant County, I would like to thank the Grant County Youth Substance Abuse Prevention Council, the Upper Mimbrus and Gila Cliff Volunteer Fire Departments for use of their stations and DEA for their support. We hope to participate in the program next April and make this a regular part of the Sheriff's Office community outreach. The Sheriff's Office staff, including Darren and Dora, conducted a Halloween drive-through pickup trick-or-treat in the County Administration Building front parking lot. Staff worked hard to prepare individual goodie bags with candy and dare materials in advance. The Sheriff's Office also supplied Gila Valley Baptist Church, the Santa Clara Church, Catholic Church, with these goodie bags for their drive-through events on Halloween Eve. Also that morning, our DARE program also participated with Napa in giving out goodie bags. I want to say that we ordered over 3,000 bags and we had 100 left after the event. Santa Clara Cemetery, on November 11th, the Sheriff's Office uniformed staff represented the county at a ceremony held at the Santa Clara Cemetery to honor those who served and sacrificed for our country. The Sheriff's Office will prepare and distribute up to 15 Thanksgiving food boxes to area families, continuing the Sheriff's Office tradition. We will also be fully sponsoring a family for the year-end holiday season to include food and gifts for all family members. In regards to our food baskets that we'll be giving, we've been reaching out to our schools and community partners, and we'll be following the COVID safe practices. We'll make contact with the families, have addresses. We'll drop off their goodies in front of their home. We'll leave the area before they can come out and pick up the goodies that the Sheriff's Office will be donating. Animal Control Services continue with ACO and Code Enforcement Officer Emergency Manager Helton. And in general, the Sheriff's Office has ordered 2 fully equipped law enforcement patrol vehicles using Operation Stone Garden funding. The first should arrive on site in mid-December. In special recognition, I'd like to thank IT Coordinator Doug Miranda for his tireless work in keeping the Sheriff's Office online. He has provided above and beyond assistance to my staff in recent months. It's been great with them, with our phones coming in, our CAD system, computers, laptops. I mean, it's been awesome. I did provide you the stats for the month of October, the times and dates, and behind it, there's a trend of domestic violence activity from January to December of 2019, and the third page is domestic violence activity from January 2020 to October of 2020. Come January, I'll have the stats that I'll present to you all with criminal stats in the county, not just the domestic violence. The total calls of service that we had for the month of October, dispatch calls were 586, self-initiated were 1,120 for a total of 1,706 calls for service. Our civil division was kind of slow compared to other months. They did serve 14 DVOs, notices of 47, subpoenas of 127, summons of 68, and writs of 8. And total mileage outside of the county on transports was 1,136 miles. On our HIDA, our narcotic agent, They did 3 vehicle search warrants, 2 separate county-wide impact operations arresting suspects, narcotic violation warrants. 3 ounces of methamphetamine were seized, 4 grams of heroin were seized, and 4 arrests in relation to narcotic investigations. In regards to just some of the calls, I mean, obviously we deal with the same, but our guys have gotten really aggressive in, I mean, we have COVID and we're following safe practices, wearing our mask and so forth and so on. They're still doing a heck of a job, and we're very blessed that none of us have been infected with this virus. But just to show the activities, for the month of October, 262 license plates were ran versus 197 last year. It just shows the activity that these guys are doing while they're out on the streets and trying to protect our community. Welfare checks, we did have 50 and 1 self-initiated. We did have a plane crash that the sheriff's office started to investigate, and we had the crime scene throughout the night, and the following morning we did dispo it to New Mexico State Police. The biggest thing that we've been having are crashes. For the month of October, we had 17 dispatch calls to crashes with no injuries, and 2 that were self-initiated, and we had 1 vehicle crash with injuries. The total crashes that's been investigated throughout the year is 297 crashes. Our mining continues. Our main coverage is covering Santa Clara. Hurley has minimal calls of service, but we're still patrolling that area. And of course, Baird for the most part is self-initiated, and we will assist Baird if needed to. But Town Park's been really slow. Our guys continue doing frequent patrols in the area, and now and then we'll have some people parking there, looking at watching the stars, observing the stars. Other than that, it's gone great. Our morale is great. Our guys are doing awesome. I'm so proud of our staff and the continuous work that they continue to do. So thank you, and I stand for questions.
Thank you, Sheriff. Do we have any questions? Commissioner Edwards?
So, I thought I heard you say something over 1,000 self-initiated requests for help. Is that really right?
Yes, ma'am.
No, that was more on welfare checks.
Oh, no, on welfare checks?
No, you were right. I was talking to Harry, sorry.
Yeah, just initiated calls that our deputies took on.
Right.
So that would be
What was
traffic
the number?
stops, fighting, I'm sorry?
What was the number again?
1,120.
Okay, so either I've been asleep every time you've reported that in the past, or that has really gone up.
Yes, ma'am. And again, it shows our guys are being aggressive. They're out on the streets, they're taking the initiative, and they're doing their job and identifying what's going on.
So they're initiating
Yes,
it,
ma'am.
not somebody calling
No,
you. They're initiating.
So on that paper, on the bottom right, it'll show
Yeah.
dispatch calls. And it'll show that number of 586.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
the next one is 1,120.
Yeah.
Those are self-initiated calls, so the deputy themselves are taking
They're
those
doing
calls.
it, okay.
Right.
Well, that's, okay, so then that's a really awesome number.
Yes, ma'am.
I was like,
Most definitely.
wow. So see, I might have been asleep. Okay, awesome, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Commissioner Salas?
Sheriff Gomez, I was looking at the domestic violence, and can you tell me, the violations? I understand, I realize that it's a piece of paper, but then what happens on a violation? Because if you look at the violations, they're significant, they're pretty high. So what happens to a person that violates the restraining order?
So an order of protection, of course, it's a district judge order. And once it's served either a temporary or an emergency, and it becomes actually signed by a district judge, it's an arrestable offense. So it's there's only the misdemeanor rule, what they call the exceptions to the misdemeanor rule, that's one of the exceptions. So if our deputies, once someone has been served an order of protection and they violated it, because the person is not there, we can attempt to locate that person and arrest them. So that would be a violation of any protection order is an arrestable offense.
And my other question would be that if you arrest somebody for, example, firing a weapon out in public or whatever, and you take him, he goes to jail. From that point on, his release goes to a committee, right?
Yeah, it goes through the judge, sir.
So, I mean, the release of that, because the bonding isn't there anymore.
That's correct.
And it goes, so it would go to, isn't it a committee that decides to release or not?
No, sir. So what the process is, once we effect an arrest and they're taken to the detention center, that paperwork is forwarded to whatever judge in the district that we're dealing with magistrate. Once they get the paperwork, they make the determination of releasing them. And with this catch and release program, it's supposed to be where if this person is not a danger to society or to themselves, they're pretty much released within 24 to 48 hours.
Because we've seen some, well, I mean, myself as part of the public, I've seen some pretty serious violations that get released. So I was just wondering about that.
Well, I'm in the same as you and my feelings and my opinions. Unfortunately, those are the laws of the state, and there's a lot of disagreement in law enforcement of who gets released and who doesn't. But once they're placed under arrest, that's on the hands of the judges, on the courts.
Okay, and there's no more bonding at all?
No, sir. There is no bonds whatsoever. With New Mexico laws now, it is considered unconstitutional.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, thanks. First, I want to apologize for causing confusion in your question, Alicia. So thanks for riding with that. And I want to thank you, Sheriff, for your responsiveness to a constituent concern that I forwarded to you. I really appreciated that very much. And I want to say that I'm also still receiving constituent concerns about welfare checks being performed without masks. And we've raised this before at a commission hearing, and I'm pretty sure you told us that the Sheriff's Department policy was that the deputies would wear masks when they interface with the public. But maybe I forgot what you told me. Could you repeat?
No, sir, there is a policy, and our policy was actually instituted back in May. And yes, they will wear masks. And I myself have gotten a couple complaints. I do have a staff meeting coming up on Monday. We have expressed to our staff that progressive discipline will be enforced. It's something that we need to do. Even from the parking lot that we park our units going into the office, they're required to wear a mask just like I and anybody else does. So I will revisit that with our staff levels on Monday, and most definitely it is to be enforced.
Okay, I'm really glad to hear that, and well, good luck enforcing it. I think it's very important at this point.
Yes, sir. One thing that I can tell you, and this happened to me, I was leaving, this is probably about 3 weeks ago. I was leaving the house, coming to the office in the morning, and Bear didn't have coverage, and we get a suspicious person. So I was in the area, so I took the call. But the last thing I thought was my mask, and I did get off. So I am guilty, and that's one thing that we've been trying to get our guys to make sure that mask is hand in hand when they're walking out of their unit.
I'm well familiar with that problem. I've done that several times myself.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Edwards?
I have a follow-up question to what Commissioner Salas was talking about the bond thing.
Yes, ma'am.
So, if a person has a serious offense that should be, that they should be retained. So they are, with the New Mexico laws, they are, if the judge retains them, then they are retained without bond until hearing?
Well,
And I'm trying to figure out that no bond thing. So
okay. So if we do have a serious offender, the district attorney's office has 5 days to file a motion with district judge to retain them in jail. If they don't make that 5-day deadline, that person will be released. So it's
even if it's a murderer, a suspected murder.
If it's a suspected
Then
murder,
they would-
they still have to file a petition to the district courts to retain them in jail. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then if the district attorney is busy or forgets or something like that, then that person's on the street after 5
Well,
days.
hopefully that doesn't happen. In any
I'm not
major,
accusing anybody, but.
right, in any major scenes or any felony levels, we do call the district attorney's office for approval of charges. So they're aware of it once that charges have been proved. And the most important thing is our deputies are required to complete their reports before they leave that shift, because that paperwork does need to be forwarded to the district attorneys to file that motion.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk? No report. Do we have any other elected officials on the phone or anything? No? Thank you. Moving on to next item of the agenda is going to be approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair.
That we approve the work session minutes of October 13, the regular meeting minutes of October 15, the special meeting minutes of October 29, and the special meeting minutes of November 12.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Commissioner Edwards. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to financial reports, item E, consideration of November 12, 2020 expenditure report.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve November 12, 2020 expenditure report.
No second?
Second by Commissioner Brown, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Going on to F, quarterly financial report ending in September 30th, 2020.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve that report.
I'll second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the next item under new business. Item G, consideration of county operational assessment. Commissioner Salas?
Mr. Chair, I think we decided on a plan of action, right? That we're going to go forward or do we need to finalize something today?
I don't think we need to finalize anything. I think our evaluation process for the county manager is something we take care of in executive session. It's a personnel matter where we're evaluating it.
Okay. Because I did review the questions that we had come up with, and I think they're still pertinent, and maybe, in executive session, we can move forward.
Does that make sense?
So do we just table that now?
I mean, personally, I think we should just table it and decide what, or I don't know how,
Yeah, I don't know how to proceed right now with that.
yeah. Or do we just move on with what was discussed?
Well, so we've discussed having a survey. It's a pretty brief 11-question survey of county staff, not including staff of other elected officials. I suppose what we haven't decided is the exact timing of that survey. Other than that, I don't know why we would need to table anything rather than move forward. I think we can just set the timing.
So I have a question is, so are we talking about two different things? This is a county operational assessment.
Right, and that's the reason I'm asking to table it, because I think we're going into two different directions. One's a county assessment, and then one's what we should have been doing last year, I guess. So my suggestion would be, because of the writings on this, consideration of county operational assessment is to table the matter, come back to it, visit it some other time, but go ahead with our plans that don't need action that I guess we have decided heaven knows when, and move forward with that part and table this part.
Now I understand.
Mr. Chair, I move that we table the county operational assessment.
I'll second. Discussion?
Just point of clarification, does that mean we're going to go forward with a survey?
Yes. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in, Commissioner Edwards, do you have anything? No?
No, sorry.
Okay, I just, okay, all those in favor of tabling, that item?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item H, consideration of lobbyist services for the 2021 legislative session. County Manager, do you have anything to say on this, or?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I spoke with Randy Hernandez yesterday afternoon, or Tuesday afternoon, sorry, just to explore different options based on some of the questions that Commissioner Salas asked if we had to do an RFP, and we don't, based on the possibility of where this falls within the procurement limits. We could do just a notice of intent to request quotes, and we could specify some criteria in there of, you know, what you might be looking for that would be an effective lobbyist for Grant County. And it would be, you know, based on experience, the price quote. We could do it that way. And then that would allow us, it would be a shorter time frame. We could release that for possibly 2 weeks. It would be a shorter time frame. Would buy us some more time to wait and see what the legislative session is going to look like. But we talked about it in pretty great detail, and it doesn't require an RFP. We could do it that way. And then it would generate any possible interest from various parties that might want to be your lobbyist if you choose to go that direction.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Edwards?
So under those circumstances, then we could have, would we have enough time to do like some kind of presentation from the people who are interested? Do we have enough time to do that when the December meeting is, or not?
Sure, I believe that's possible before the session.
Might be just nice to hear from them.
Well, we have to be careful with that because you are awarding the contract and you wouldn't be, that you're crossing that line again of where you would be part of the review and the assessment and muddying that up. So it might, so I'm not.
Commissioner Brown?
I have two conflicting things, I think, to say. I think Commissioner Edwards is suggesting the presentation could come after the RFP or the notice of intent to request quotes were sent out, in which case presenters would not be influencing the content of what we were requesting. They would merely be adding information to their notice of intent by speaking to us.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brown, I think that just to be on the safe side, I'd like to do some more research of the procurement code to make sure that we're not putting you in a position of influencing. It's very similar to you not being on a review committee because you don't review RFPs, you don't review the responses because you are the body that approves the contract. And when you intertwine those, that's just what's been ingrained in my mind, ingrained in me. And so let Randy and I please research that. I don't want to do anything that's inappropriate. And if we can do that, by all means, we will make sure that we set that up and have them give you presentations. But I'd rather make sure that we do our research and do it correctly.
I have no objection to doing that research, of course, and no objection to making sure we're following appropriate guidelines. The second conflicting or contradictory, really, statement I want to make is I don't think this is a matter on which I need to be part of judging which is the best respondent. This, to me, is a classic case where we employ you to make that call. It's a very limited universe of bidders. It's a very specialized sort of service that's being provided. It's not a huge amount of money. It involves communication with you primarily, not with us, because we don't meet that often, especially during the session. And so on this matter, I'm comfortable saying you and your staff should evaluate the people who are interested in providing a quote. And I personally don't need to be involved until approval. If then, I mean, if it's small enough, I don't even need to be involved then, but I suspect it'll be over that limit.
Commissioner Edwards, sorry to probably cut you off going to Commissioner Brown.
No, actually, I was just going to say, I hadn't really thought about that from that perspective, but I'm actually in agreement with that. Because I never talked to that lobbyist last year.
Right.
And I think, under the circumstances, it's unlikely that we're going to be going to Santa Fe to do any work this year.
Commissioner Salas?
Mr. Chair, I sort of like to echo the same sentiments, and I'm thinking that maybe that's why it's probably going to be more important that we have a lobbyist to keep their eye out and notify us of anything, Now, I'm thinking about possible money that we could access and stuff. Maybe we would just need to set up some criteria. Like for me, my only criteria that I really would want is communications. Somehow we get emails or something that says, hey, this is what's going on. And even if we don't have any face-to-face, and the rest of it, I'm happy with our manager doing it.
I totally agree. My thing was that also like what I said last time is the communication that all the commissioners do receive, maybe on a weekly email, so they know that what's out there and what this person will be lobbying for. Jeez.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Bill?
So I pretty well agree with everything that's been stated. I think there's probably additional criteria, but I'm not familiar enough with lobbyists. The whole idea of a lobbyist could be kind of shady. For instance, I know it's against the law to contract with them to bring back money as a percentage, to pay them a percentage of what they bring back. So I know there's some laws governing hiring lobbyists. Is there, so I'm thinking about Mr. Salas's comment about criteria, and communication is a good one. It would seem that we would want to hire a lobbyist that was well connected, obviously. So let me back up a little bit. One that knew what was going on, obviously, who had experience. So I don't know what the legislature is going to do. I heard that they're negotiating with renting the convention center. We'll see how that works out. And they're actually entertaining the idea of having people go to Santa Fe in a very spaced out manner. I've also heard that they are entertaining the idea of postponing the session until April or whenever, at what point in time things have changed. So what would, I guess my question to the commission and maybe more to the staff that would be selecting the lobbyist is, what would you look for in a lobbyist? I'd sure like to know one who is connected to people who know how much money is available and then communicates well. What would some other criteria be?
Well, experience. I mean, that's closely related to the connected well. But the experience is how you get connected and how you demonstrate that you know what's going on. So.
I would think that anybody applying for it probably already has some of those connections to communicate with them. But other than that, I'm with you. I don't know what else is there. Do you have any input there, County Manager?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, yes, I would agree with all that's been said. The other thing that I would add that's important is there's a lot of lobbyists out there that may not be in tune with what's happening with local government. So someone who has obviously represented local government before, or maybe has past experience in local government, because a lot of our issues are much different than other issues. And having someone that not only has the ability to chase capital outlay and make sure that we're represented there, there's a lot of other legislation that affects counties in other ways that they have a broad understanding of how those laws would affect the county other than just money coming in, because we might get money coming in, but we might also get a piece of legislation that hits us that is much more detrimental than getting capital outlay. So it's having that mix of things, and also being able to have a relationship with New Mexico counties. They meet weekly during the session, sometimes daily during the session, with lobbyists that represent county governments in a huddle, and they all work very closely together and attack as a group and divide and conquer. So I think that experience is also helpful.
Commissioner Salas?
Take your choice.
I was just gonna say that just proves our point, get manager to do
Right. And I was just going to reinforce what you said, that you do want to hire someone within that specialized area. And I was going to relate a brief story back in the day of Manny Aragon, when he was the power guy. I made the mistake of hiring a lobbyist to propose a bill on one issue, and that lobbyist was affiliated with another issue that Manning wanted to shut down, and my bill made zero progress. Because of that, specifically because of that, he wanted to punish that lobbyist. So it matters who you hire.
Yes, it does.
Okay then.
Anything else? So what direction do we
I
go in
think we
this?
have a motion and a second to approve this, I believe. Do we not?
No, I don't
To
think
approve, no.
we haven't got to that part.
I think we're not,
Mr. Chair, I will move that we hire a lobbyist for the 2021 legislative session and convey our authority to the county manager to do that hiring.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Billings. Discussion.
as long as the estimated cost is within your jurisdiction, as it were.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye, motion carries. So moving on to the next item of the agenda is consideration of an appointment to TUCASA Advisory Board. I believe we have one applicant.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Christina Wooford for appointment to the CASA Advisory Board.
A second?
Second by Commissioner Brown. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to item J, approve committee recommendations for the CARES Act for small businesses.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the committee's recommendations for the Small Business Continuity Grant Awards.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Edwards. Discussion.
Is there any need for us to spell them out?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the media did call after last meeting wanting to know who they were, so if you could just mention the names, that would save a phone call.
These are Bear Mountain Lodge in the amount of $8,169. Melanie Zippen, the same amount, $8,169. And Mis Amigos, also in the amount of $8,169.
Okay, so we had a first, second, right? We're in discussion? Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to item K, approval of Economic Development Administration Grant Award for project.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve this EDA grant or financial assistance award in the amount of $500,000.
I'll second that.
And I'll note during discussion that our share of the cost is being provided on an in-kind basis, and there's no anticipated cash outlay.
Okay, so we have a first, second by, I believe, Commissioner Edwards. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Under agreements, item L.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve amendment number 1 to agreement number A-20-11 between the State of New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration regarding the DWI grant.
Second, Mr. Chair.
21DG10.
Yeah, right.
Second by Commissioner Salas. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to resolutions under item M.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve Resolution R 20-43, an extensive budget adjustment of many different funds.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Second by Commissioner Salas. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item N.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve resolution number R-2044, a resolution to extend the termination date of the local government road fund county arterial program cooperative agreement, control number HW2L100435 from December 31st, 2020 to December 31st, 2021.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Brown. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to the next item, which is bids and requests for proposal. Item O. So I'll make a motion on consideration of RFP number 21-02 for a computer-aided dispatch system, as recommended by Randy, right?
Yes.
Second.
And to make clear, we are accepting their recommendation to go with Central Square Technologies.
Yes. Got a second by Commissioner Billings. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, if I can entertain a motion to recess as a Grant County Board of Commissioners
So moved, Mr. Chair.
and convene as a Grant County Healthcare Claims Board. We have a motion by Commissioner Salas.
Apparently, we're in a hurry.
We have a motion by Commissioner Salas. Who second?
Commissioner Billings did. No? Okay.
I'll second it. Second by me. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we are convened as the Grant County Health Care Claims Board. Item P, consideration of indigent burial for September 2020 in the amount of $600.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve that indigent burial in the amount of $600.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brown. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, which is Q, consideration of health care claims for October 2020 in the amount of $3,844.58.
I move approval.
I'll second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Guess I'll make a motion to adjourn as a Grant County Health Care Claims Board and reconvene as a Grant County Board of Commissioners.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brown. Discussion. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're back as the Grant County Board of Commissioners. Under Commissioners' reports, Commissioner Brown, do you have a report?
Yeah, I have something to say. I don't know if it counts as a report or not. We need to organize with you whether we go first or last or something beforehand, don't we? I wrote several versions of something to say, and I'm happy to say that my fellow commissioner has talked me down. During Tuesday's work session, our planning director informed us that we've been receiving notices of intent to respond to a RFP for design and planning services related to a trails and open space master plan. This came as a total surprise to me. And I blamed myself for that until I talked with other people and found it was a surprise to many of us. When I discussed the question of the lobbyist contract, I pointed out that that was an issue that I felt perfectly comfortable having the staff handle. There are issues that aren't like that. There are issues that the county manager is aware we have strong interests in. I mean, you would be aware that I have an interest in this, even if you just followed the paper, because it was a major campaign commitment on my part to have such a plan in place. I think we've all mentioned things like that. You all have strong interest in the Baton Park work and have at times expressed frustration at being left out of communication about that. Well, that's what I realized happened to me. We've mentioned a number of times that we need more communication. Maybe it's my fault for not making weekly appointments. I admire the fact that some of our commissioners do that. Frankly, I thought I could depend on the usually very competent staff to know that this was an issue that I wanted to be kept informed about. So I found myself in the last 48 hours trying to figure out if I'm happy with where we're at or dissatisfied, what changes I want to make, and that's not enough time. It's not enough time to contact people who are experts in this area, and I resented that being the position I was in. So my position at the moment, as far as this potential contract for coming up with a Trails and Master Space plan for Grant County, is that we need to slow down. And I'm open in other comments to other people's perspectives on this, but basically I want to consider what happened on Tuesday to be sort of a beginning of a process that can involve those of us who want to be involved. This is super important to me that we not blow this one opportunity we have to develop this master plan. And blowing something can happen even if the execution is perfect from an engineering standpoint if you don't include public input. And so part of what I want to make sure we do is include a lot of public input in this. I don't see that in the RFP. I didn't, of course, even have a chance to, well, I shouldn't say that. I did have a chance. I was not alerted to the fact that the RFP was on our website, and I don't make a habit of checking our procurement items on the website all the time. Perhaps that's something else I should do. But again, I was depending on staff knowing that that was something I'm passionate about and wanted to be involved with. So at this point, if at the next meeting somehow we were presented with something to approve, some contract or something, I would have serious questions about how we came to it, and I would not be inclined to approve it. And rather than get to that point, let's do it right from the beginning, is my plea. So, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know you wanted to go fast or whatever.
I should stop before I keep going.
I try to just, do, Commissioner Salas, you have something?
And going with you, Commissioner Brown, the master plan is integrally related to what we want for the county. So that's why I have been wanting, to have a parking lot, so to speak, of issues. My thought was that it was all dependent on the funding coming in, and that's why we hadn't heard anything. But I think that I would really want a parking lot of all issues like that, and have a status report on it every time that we have a work session. Say, hey, here's what this is, so that those surprises don't come. Because I think, especially, when we're looking capital outlay money or other such things like that, those are really important things to us. And the master plan, is going to play a big part of where we want to lead the county. So I'm in agreement with you.
County Manager?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'd like to just clarify where we are in the process. I believe what Misha was alluding to is in this RFP is a notice of intent to bid. We're nowhere near a contract. We haven't even received a grant agreement yet. We were trying to be very thorough in the process. And I apologize for not letting you know exactly where we were. We have numerous RFPs we do. I will make sure that we do a better job of letting you know when we're putting out all our RFPs, because so my apology there. I will get with Misha. We'll rectify that situation, but we're nowhere near a contract. We are simply in the RFP process. We're still developing the committee who will be reviewing those RFPs, and we will include you to the extent we can in the RFP process. But once again, I have to make sure that if you are the one approving the contract, that I have to keep that separation and the amount of your involvement. We certainly can do a better job of communication, and I will meet with all of my staff to make sure that we try to meet your needs, but we're nowhere near a contract.
Commissioner Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I go on the website and I look at the RFP, it seems like it's done. It seems like the RFP has been issued to the public.
It has, but we also solicit letters of intent as well. But it has been issued, and we are trying to move the ball forward. So when we did get the money, we were ready to go, and we did not delay that. That was our goal, because we realize how important this project is to the commission. Obviously, it was #1 priority. So we were trying to make sure that we timed that, and we were ready to move forward with that project the minute that grant agreement with the money showed up. We're still trying to verify that they've even sold the bonds for that. So we were trying to be proactive. We were trying to put it together to where those pieces fell, and there wasn't any delays that we've experienced with CDBG. So we were trying to do the right thing. I see where we fell short, and I'll meet with staff to make sure that we address your concerns.
So part of what talked me down from from being very angry was realizing that what you just said is true, that this was not what it felt like at first, which was an attempt at an end run around the commission, that it was in fact the result of a desire to move things quickly. So I appreciate that part, and I don't want to leave out that I appreciate that you wanted to move things quickly. But the process starts at the beginning, and if the RFP doesn't include crucial elements, then the people who submit notices of intent aren't aware of those elements and of their importance. And the committee that meets to evaluate those submissions doesn't have that direction as to what should be included in the evaluation. So it's important to start with everything that you want in that RFP. And that's the point, the part about which I feel like we've been left out. I don't think it is in any way inappropriate within the procurement process for the decision-making body to assist in the development of the criteria that will be put in the RFP In fact, I think it's totally appropriate. We are the ones who should be setting those criteria based on what we as a decision-making body believe we want to do with this funding and with this plan.
Keep calling you Commissioner. County Manager.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brown, we can always issue an addendum. It was our desire to make sure that these firms who responded to this RFP did make presentations to the group. We realize, the staff realizes how important community input is in this. We will make sure that that is what happens. In the research we've done in other communities that have done that is an automatic piece that falls within that. I realize it's not probably spelled out in verbatim black and white. We can issue an addendum. It was our intent to make sure that we had that discussion in the interview process, but if you would prefer, we can issue that in the form of an addendum. I had a conversation with another commissioner about this very thing. We'd be happy to do that. Just please email Randy and I the language that you would like to see, and we can amend it.
So, I mean, and I'm glad that something's, going forward here, but yeah, I too in the past have had concerns about not being kept informed in some of the different projects, and that's what I've been asking, that at least, if anything, the commissioner in that district be aware of certain things. We work so well together that, we can always discuss things and come up to a resolution. The other thing, and along these lines also, this is what, the lobbying services is. We have to work on some type of communication with commissioners, because, what I agree on our lobbyists doing, Commissioner Edwards does not. We have to have forms of communication to discuss some of these things. Maybe what I don't agree on, Commissioner Billings does and wants them to go forward. So I think it's just communication. I think this board has done great. They've worked together great. We've been pretty open-minded, and we've, discussed certain things to come up with a resolution. But I'd like to see a little more discussion and more communication for our commissioners on things, so they can move forward or come up with ideas. So, but and we can work on that as we go. And I'm glad that you're doing what you need to do and go from there.
Yes, if you guys could give me some more direction as to what you want. I have mentioned this in my report, that this is where we were at. This is where it was in my very long, thorough report, and that we were prepared to issue the RFP, and I didn't get any feedback there. So I assure you we will do, but I also I could use some feedback from you as to what your expectations are.
Well, in your
and we will certainly do our best to meet them.
In your defense too, you have 5 commissioners.
Right.
Could you imagine? I can't imagine myself sitting there seeing 5 people coming in with different views and different ideas, but we appreciate what you do, and thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Billings.
So I remember mention of it at the work session. I remember, so obviously this wasn't on my number 1 priority list. Not that I don't support trails. I think it's a great idea. So I guess I'm a little bit behind in knowing exactly what this RFP is for. Is now an appropriate time to ask that question?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's totally fine with me.
County Manager Webb, what is it exactly is this RFP for?
This RFP is for the development of a trails master plan for the entire county.
So the RFP is for a development of a trails master plan. So I guess I'm a little bit, Harry, can you explain why you think we got the cart before the horse on it then?
Yeah, I don't know if cart before the horse. We've got the cart without all of our input into how we should build that cart. So I agree that this is the normal procedure for most RFPs. none of us has said, hey, this is an issue we really care about, right? Basically, we've said, staff, we want you to keep this county running smoothly, and the staff is used to writing up these RFPs, publishing them, forming committees and evaluating them, right? But on some issues, I think we as a commission or even individual commissioners have said, this matters a lot to us. And I think on those issues, the county manager should ask for our input specifically into what's written in the request for proposals. It's hard for me to imagine I would ever change the specifications for a road project. So that's why I would never expect those to be provided to me. But I think we can probably all imagine things like the Baton Park Memorial, where we do in fact want to be involved in specifying something about what bidders are going to be bidding on and saying what we want to see. Is it just about Baton? Is it about all veterans? Those kind of things are policy decisions we should all be involved in. So in this case, it's the Trails Master Plan is, I think, central to something we've all talked about, which is diversifying our economy by promoting outdoor recreation opportunities and also improving quality of life for our residents by providing better access to the outdoors so people of all sorts can take advantage of where we live. And we've made that known enough times that we should be part of saying what goes into the evaluation process of bidders to help us prepare this plan. And I guess, maybe just to make the point, let me take two extremes. One extreme would be an engineering firm that approaches this from a technical perspective and says, we can build this many miles of paved trail, this many miles of unpaved trail, these many kiosks, whatever, and that's their approach. And another would be what I would consider like a community-oriented design firm, not engineering, that says, who are the users? Who are you trying to attract? And talks to small businesses, talks to bicycle enthusiasts and hiking enthusiasts and off-road motor vehicle enthusiasts, people who like to ride horses, right? And gets all of that input and spends a huge amount of time gathering input to make an integrated plan that, obviously the way I've presented this is what I would rather see. If you don't know that from the beginning, which of those things you want, then you haven't given your bidders the information you will be using, that they need to know what you're expecting, to put in their bids, and that then your evaluators can use evaluating those bids. So to me, you really got to get it right at the very beginning. It's like you're going to buy some kind of computer system, but you haven't told the bidders that what you really want is a computer system that does X, right? You've got to put in what you want from the beginning.
Well, it just seems to me that we're not, if this RFP is for the development of a plan, that would be the next step. But maybe there's something I'm missing, because
you see a plan. You could develop a plan in these two different ways, right? In a very sort of centralized, this is how we want to do it sort of approach, or you could develop a plan by involving lots of components of the community. So I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, so I guess to develop a plan, yeah. I sort of see what you're saying, but and you want to be involved in. Yeah, I get that.
I guess I want to say what I just said, but I want that to be reflected in the RFP.
It just doesn't seem like, so have you read the RFP?
I have now, but I hadn't as of Tuesday when Misha brought it up.
Oh, okay. Well,
because I didn't know it was there.
I'm at a disadvantage not having read the RFP, so thanks.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Edwards?
Maybe some of what I have to say would clear this particular thing up just a little bit. I am in agreement with Commissioner Brown and the rest of you that have said that we want to be involved. I also would like to say that I think after my conversation with the county manager, it was pretty clear that she had that in mind. But just, you know, it had not been conveyed to us. But she had been thinking about the fact that we had talked about some of these issues. So I also have been an advocate of Trails and Open Space Master Plan long before I became a commissioner in my work with Healthy Kids, Healthy Communities, and various other things that I've been doing. And I just want to talk for a second about how important I think this master plan is in terms of, you know, oftentimes planning like this is dramatically underfunded, and therefore it is not adequate for what we really want to get done. And one of the things that I pushed a huge amount was to actually invest a significant amount of money in this planning process. And thanks to the unanimous support of the commission, this item was number one on our ICIP list and funded to the tune of $250,000. That's huge. And, you know, when we were talking about the Baton Park Memorial the other day, you know, we were talking about the fact that that might be a $5 or $10 million project. Well, if you look at the bigger picture of what's happening right now in this community and all the various projects and dreams that people are talking about that are related to diversifying our economy and outdoor rec and, you know, how we're going to make our community amazing for all of us and our economy, you know, we probably have $150 million worth of dreams out there right now. And I think it's amazing. You know, I am really excited about all these different things. But we have to have some really significant planning pieces in place in order to move all these things forward, because we need buy-in from the community. I would really hope, I mentioned this the other day, I've mentioned it a number of times, I hope there's a tax increment that would fund some of these dreams. There's a lot of different kinds of things that we're going to have to be looking at that are going to require funding, and a comprehensive master plan for some of this is really critically important to getting that funding. The other piece of that is a comprehensive plan, whether it's our county comp plan or this Trails and Open Space plan. If we don't involve the whole community and the users in this, people won't buy into it. And we already know that there is controversy over off-highway vehicle use versus solitude and things like that. And we have to have a plan and a conversation that meets all the users' needs, and also is a container, as it were, for our vision, because it's a really big one and it's going to need a really big bucket. So with that said, I actually did come up with some language that I would like to see as part of an addendum. And the other piece that I want to just talk about really quickly is, you know, in the RFP, certain kinds of things are awarded points which tell the applicant how we value these various parts of the RFP. And I would actually like to see this added to the points piece at the 250 point level. We have one thing, specialized design and technical competence at 350 points. And then we have capacity and capability at 250 points and past record of performance at 250 points. And I would like to suggest that the piece about community input is also in here at 250 points. And my suggested language on that is provide information about the offerer's specific experience with broad public engagement throughout the planning process, facilitating challenging topics successfully, integrating land and people, rural and urban, history and culture, using multimodal trail systems to connect communities with existing and planned future amenities. The idea behind that is we have this amazing project that SwinMac is working on with the 5 Points thing. We have all this work that we're talking about with CDT. We've been talking for a long time about how we're going to connect Silver City to the mining district communities, all that kind of stuff. I really see this as a way to put all of those things into a single place where, long beyond our tenure, the vision is captured and we're able to work on it for as long as it takes us to raise $150 million. So I hope that helps.
Okay, anything else on what Commissioner Brown said? Commissioner Salas?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brown, we're at the end of the hunting seasons, or part of them, and there was a huge influx of people that came in. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you talk about hunting and you have tunnel vision but when I went in, so I don't physically go hunt, I like to go be part of the camping stuff and that. But I went in, and I see people on horseback. I see people they're walking, they're using the trails. And then, of course, a lot of people that can't do that, they're in the motorized. And a combination of all those, take a motorized vehicle to a point and then go walking from that point on and stuff like that. And then I said, well, that's just the forest. That's just going out to, Lake Roberts and out towards, distant places. But no, our forest borders. You go to Bear Mountain, Little Walnut, up across where we're wanting trails. So I think that when issues come up, maybe we need to tag and say, hey, we want to be part of the criteria for this. When they're coming up for the RFP, saying, and maybe it should be us saying, tag that, so I need it, I want it. Because those issues are very important. As you mentioned, the way it's put out, we need to say, this is what we want. And I think that those are really important things to do. When things come up, because they're all intertwined. When things come up for Baton, we just had a thing for Memorial. If it ever becomes, the reality of that dream coming true, we want to be a part of all that. Anything that has to do with that. And I think most of those are issues that we put in for our CDBG and our SCIP ones. So, and how can we accomplish that? And I think by formally tagging those, denoting those, and having status reports on those, so that they don't come as a surprise. And having, some kind of reporting on them, even in our monthly meetings, saying, okay, this remains the same, this is coming up, or whatever. So that's mine.
Anything else on this?
Thank you,
Are
Mr.
you
Chair.
done
I
with
am
your-
done, yes.
Okay. Well, so you should have gone last, I didn't know.
No, it's fine.
Commissioner Billings.
Yeah, I just want to point out a couple of things on the agenda that we approved today. I want to thank the county management staff and others, not to leave anyone out in the community, who helped secure the economic development grant in the amount of $500,000. Hopefully that can spur some recovery here post-COVID and expand in our economy. Also want to draw attention to the healthcare claims in the amount of less than $4,000. That continues to be it continues to surprise me. I'm going to keep looking for that spike back up to the amounts that we used to see that were many, many times that amount. And so I want to congratulate the staff for looking out after that, watching it monthly and taking the steps that were necessary to get it to those levels. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Billings. Commissioner Salas.
My report is going to be appreciation of our county employees. I seen them, you know, the elections were there, and instead of shying away from all the barriers that were presented and the problems and what had to be done, you know, people stepped up. I come to the office and I see everybody cooperating. Instead of taking it as a hindrance, they've stepped up and they're doing what they need to. I've been out on our roads and I see the crews working, and you know, flagmen have their mask on, and I tell myself, I hate wearing this thing just for the meetings. I can't imagine wearing those things the whole day. But they've done it because, you know, the supervisors have said, you know, just like the sheriff was saying, this is our mandate, this is what we're going to do. But anyway, it's really hit me that they've done such a wonderful job. And here's my question, probably to the county manager. Is there any way that we can show our recognition that won't cross any legal boundaries? You know, a gift certificate for a turkey at Christmas, or, you know, anything like that. And I know maybe county manager would have to look at that, but I certainly would like to, more than just a spoken word of recognition, give them something that really shows that, you know, we appreciate what they're doing, because they are keeping us going and they're doing a very good job of it. And that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Salas. Commissioner Edwards.
Well, I think everything's been said. So I also want to really thank the county manager and her staff, as well as all of the other folks that have worked really hard. The EDA grant has been a long time coming. Folks have been working on this Better Cities and all of the things that are attached to this for a really long time. And you know, it's a big thing to get $500,000 to do this, because what that really means is that while it's not, you know, going to fund it forever, it's a big enough chunk of money that we can actually get some real work done and have enough room to figure out how to keep it going. Because that's the thing. We talked about this a little bit the other day. You know, so many times we get these grants and then the program just dies after the grant's gone. And a lot of times that's because the grant just isn't big enough. So $500,000 for economic recovery is really amazing, and I really appreciate all the hard work that went into getting that. I think some of us have made some radio ads about wearing masks and social distancing and washing our hands and staying home over the holidays. I just want to really reiterate that I was a little surprised by the earlier comments about the lack of surge in our community. We are having a big surge, as Commissioner Brown pointed out. We've had a couple of days when cases have doubled from one day to the next. We don't know what we're facing over the next 3 months, 4 months, but I think it's really, really important for each and every one of us to do what we can. And one of the things that I really want to remind people about is that, you know, we talk a lot about how doing or not doing what we're asked to do in terms of masks and that sort of thing affects our families, friends, and neighbors. But what we haven't talked very much about is how it affects our healthcare workers and the folks that are exposing themselves to extreme personal risk in order to take care of the rest of us. And if you needed some inspiration to put that mask on, think about the healthcare providers and what they're dealing with right now. And, you know, I have a lot of confidence that the hospital is doing everything they can to be prepared, but there isn't much we can do if our hospital or any other hospital in our area is overwhelmed by COVID cases. And that is happening around the country. And, you know, I don't think any of us want to get to the point where we're having to choose who's going to get health care and who's not. And so one of the ways to avoid that completely is to not overwhelm our healthcare system by wearing masks. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. You know, I was gonna, in my comments there, I was gonna go with, but Commissioner Edwards hit on it most as far as what our healthcare workers are going through. But as a community, and I know everybody has friends that live in Cruces, live in El Paso, Tucson, and we know people. One of the biggest things, and I've seen it, that where the state's coming up with numbers to call in. You know, being in law enforcement for almost 24 years, you get this thing about you as machismo, is what we call it, that we don't need to talk to people because of the things we see or experiences we've had. You know, during my career, I never went through a pandemic like this. I've never had to walked into a hospital with fear of catching, you know, COVID or doing anything like that. But, you know, what's really scary to me is the pressure and the stresses and the anxiety that healthcare workers go through, first responders will go through. If you see that, you know, not only do they go through that, but their families sense it and they go through part of this. You know, reach out to them. There's things out there now that the state's doing so they can talk to somebody, get help. I'm telling you, it's not an embarrassment to do that. It's for your well-being, because those stresses will hurt you in the future if they don't already hurt you now. Even people that are sitting at home that are not used to staying home and they're socially active, and when that goes, you know, that's a stress. Our elderly, those are concerns to me too. Everybody in our communities, not only in our community but in our nation, you know, reach out to them, help them, give them numbers, and don't be afraid to call. Don't be afraid to make those phone calls, because at the end it will help you and it will relieve some of that stress for you. You're not out there alone, so, you know, please, we talk a lot about masks, we talk about washing our hands, social distance, but beyond that, there's more that's happening, and that's what's scary to me is the mental anguish and all that's going to come, and it's starting to come, and you start seeing it. So make sure that you're supportive and give these people the numbers, and don't be afraid to call. It's not a sign of weakness. As a matter of fact, to me, it's a sign of strength. So I hope that I hope people see this message, will convey that to other citizens in Grant County and in anywhere that you have friends. Thank you. Any other comments? So,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we, you know what, it's been so long since we have done this, I can't remember how to do it.
How about that we move into executive session?
Right, I'll make a motion that we move into an executive session
In accordance
with NMSA 1978-1015-1H7.
I second.
second by Commissioner Brown. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Chairman Ponce, Commissioners Edwards, Brown, Salas, and Billings, are you all aware that you will be entering an executive session?
Yes.
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 Okay, we'll be entering executive session